On the face of it, Lewis Hamilton's first proper test with Ferrari, which took place in Barcelona last week here in Spain, was not the greatest of tests in that it ended in a massive shunt coming out of the last corner, which is now a quick right-hander, just as it used to be when Barcelona was originally built, and they decided it was too quick and they put a chicane in beforehand, and now they're back to almost square one, just slightly different radius, but a big corner in which to have a shunt. Lewis unhurt in that. But on the face of it, you would think, therefore, a little bit of a difficult first test for Lewis at his new team, the 7 times world champion, and what will be the repercussions of that. My take is that it was actually a very, very good test for Lewis, and I think all Lewis Hamilton fans can feel delighted at the way that test went. Yeah, there was the shunt, but let's look at the build-up to that shunt and the reasons for it. Nothing to do with bump on the road or any of that stuff. It was all tied to how good Lewis felt in the car and how he's feeling in the team. He feels great in the team. And that car, the 2023 Ferrari, which, let's face it, was not the greatest of Grand Prix cars built by Ferrari. It's the car, you'll recall, that Charles Leclerc put into the wall in Miami on consecutive days. Same piece of wall, actually. So it was not a great car, and other shunts as well. It was a relatively difficult car, very small sweet spot, I suspect, quite difficult to feel and read it. And I've got to say here, it was not on 2023 tyres. It was on the Academy Pirelli tyres they now use, which has a slightly different warm-up cycle. But that's really not important. The basic fact is that that car is not the greatest of Grand Prix cars. But guess what? In that car, Lewis Hamilton felt better than he's felt certainly over the last couple of years in Formula One in a Mercedes, probably going back, I would think, to the beginning of 2022. He loved the feeling of feeling the road again, and actually being a part of the car and kind of being on top of the car and getting it to be part of his DNA and what he does in a race car. He loved that. And that's why I think the racing driver took over in Lewis in that test, because he's integrated into the team incredibly well already. Friendly faces there from his Mercedes championship winning days, plus of course Freddie Vasseur. He's won many races and championships with Freddie, so he's integrated the team beautifully, and he loved the feel of the car compared with that of the Mercedes, his recent memory of the Mercedes. And so the racing driver took over, and the racing driver thinks logically, wow, this car's great, the team's great, I'm going to have to get up to speed pretty quickly now. We haven't got a lot of time. We need to get ready for the first race, blah, blah, blah. And he had the shunt. Okay, it was a racing driver's shunt. Lewis doesn't have many of those, hasn't had many of those in his career. But that's all it was, in my view. It was just kind of Lewis Hamilton just being out there on the limit in the car and enjoying himself. And I think the interesting thing now will be how Charles Leclerc performs alongside Lewis. Obviously, Lewis was quicker in terms of the lap times on this test because he did a lot more miles. They rebuilt the car. Charles went out and didn't do a lot in it. And then Dino Bogdanovic, the new favoured academy driver, who's really quick, got a lot of time for Dino, did a run as well. He got his super license as well, which is great, got his super license mileage. And so for me, it's a question of how Charles Leclerc is going to react now, because I can imagine, certainly not because there was a shunt at all, but it would have been kind of welcome to Ferrari, Lewis, when he hit the wall kind of thing. But there's no doubt that Lewis is already super quick and doing a great job in the car. So for me, it'll be a question of how Charles manages his emotions now, because he's got to be ready for Lewis potentially to have, just through circumstances, maybe a very good start to the year, and how Charles reacts to that. Because I still think over a year, over a season, a 24-race championship, Charles is the guy most likely to win a championship for Ferrari if it's a championship-winning car. It has the potential to do that. Speaking of which, the regs around flexi wings are tighter now. That's how most of the teams fought the flexi wing apparent advantage that McLaren seemed to have last year. You can either try and do your own version of the flexi wing, or you can try to get the FIA fired up about it. And that's obviously what most of the teams did, led by Red Bull mainly. So that regulation is a bit tighter now. And anyway, you'd have to assume that most of the top teams, by which I mean McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, possibly Aston Martin, have got almost to the limit of what you can do with these cars within this regulation. So it's going to be pretty tight, pretty close. Obviously McLaren have the momentum, but I think the others will have more consistent performance near McLaren this year than we've had even before. So that's good. Aston Martin, bit of a question mark. What goes on there? I mean, but sort of Adrian Newey will be in a perfect situation in a way, because if the team does go a little bit better this year, the car's a little bit better, wow, Adrian has breathed his magic on the car, not his car. And of course, if it doesn't continue to go well, if it doesn't go well and it continues to be sort of midfield, droning around, Adrian will say, well, it's not my car. So that's what's going on there. I think Adrian will do a good job with setup, but there's going to be a limit to what he can do with a 2025 car. So anyway, yeah, that was a promising first test, I think, for Lewis at Ferrari. And up next for him, of course, is the Pirelli test coming up, which will be in a 24 car, which will be very interesting to see, with some 25 upgrades, simulated upgrades. And then, of course, the 25 car coming on stream sometime in February, prior to the first Grand Prix. So, yeah, lots going on. And for me, you know, if you are a Lewis Hamilton fan, I think you should feel pretty bullish about the way it's going at the moment.